The Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, is one of the most well-known and influential law enforcement agencies in the world today. However, its history dates back over a century, with roots in the evolving needs of the U.S. government to combat federal crimes. From its humble beginnings to its growth under J. Edgar Hoover's leadership, the FBI has played a central role in shaping law enforcement, intelligence, and national security in the United States. Early beginnings. The need for a federal investigative agency. Before the creation of the FBI, the U.S. government had no centralized agency dedicated to investigating and enforcing federal law. Local law enforcement agencies were in charge of crime within their jurisdictions, but crimes that crossed state lines or involved federal interests went unaddressed. During the early 1900s, crime was becoming more sophisticated, with emerging issues such as organized crime, labor unrest, and public corruption. Theodore Roosevelt, the 26th President of the United States, recognized the need for a more organized and effective system for federal law enforcement. Although Roosevelt didn't directly create the FBI, he is considered one of its founding figures because of his push to modernize law enforcement and create a centralized investigative body. In 1908, during Roosevelt's presidency, the U.S. Department of Justice, under Attorney General Charles Bonaparte, formed a special unit of federal investigators. This unit was created to handle complex cases, such as corruption, interstate crime, and civil rights violations. It was initially known as the Special Agents of the Department of Justice, but would soon evolve into the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The birth of the FBI, 1908 to 1924. On July 26, 1908, the U.S. Department of Justice officially established the Bureau of Investigation, BOI, which would eventually become the FBI. At the time of its creation, the Bureau was a small group consisting of only a handful of special agents tasked with investigating crimes that cross state lines, such as land fraud, antitrust violations, and illegal activities related to immigration. However, the BOI faced numerous challenges during its early years. Local law enforcement agencies often did not cooperate with the federal investigators, and the Bureau lacked the resources and authority to enforce its investigations effectively. Despite these hurdles, the Bureau's role continued to grow in importance, especially with the rise of organized crime and corruption in the early 20th century. During this time, one of the major events that highlighted the Bureau's potential was its investigation into the Mexican Revolution, when federal agents worked to track down and arrest U.S. citizens involved in smuggling weapons to rebel forces. The Bureau was also involved in investigating land fraud cases in the western United States. J. Edgar Hoover and the expansion of the FBI, 1924 to 1972. In 1924, J. Edgar Hoover was appointed as the director of the Bureau of Investigation, marking the beginning of a transformative era for the agency. Hoover was only 29 years old at the time, but his vision for the future of federal law enforcement was groundbreaking. Under his leadership, the BOI was renamed the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, in 1935. Hoover's leadership helped shape the FBI into a highly organized, efficient, and powerful force. He was known for his obsession with professionalism and order, which extended to every aspect of the Bureau's operations. One of Hoover's first major reforms was the creation of a national fingerprint database to help track criminals across the country. This was a game-changer in law enforcement, providing an organized method of identifying repeat offenders. Under Hoover, the FBI also began to systematically investigate and combat organized crime. During the Prohibition era, 1920 to 1933, the FBI became heavily involved in investigating bootlegging operations, with famous gangsters like Al Capone becoming a central target. Hoover's focus on organized crime and his efforts to bring down notorious criminals like Capone cemented the FBI's reputation as a powerful agency. In addition to dealing with criminal enterprises, Hoover expanded the FBI's work to include counterintelligence and the fight against espionage during World War II. The FBI was instrumental in preventing sabotage and espionage on U.S. soil, with agents actively working to uncover foreign spy networks. However, Hoover's leadership was not without controversy. His tenure saw several high-profile incidents where the FBI engaged in illegal surveillance and invasive tactics to gather information on individuals and organizations. One of the most contentious examples was the FBI's surveillance of civil rights leaders, including Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., whom Hoover believed to be a threat to national security. The FBI's actions were later criticized for overstepping its legal boundaries and violating citizens' civil rights. Post-Hoover era and the FBI's evolving role, 1972-present. After Hoover's death in 1972, the FBI entered a new era of leadership. The Bureau faced intense scrutiny during the 1970s and 1980s due to its controversial actions under Hoover, particularly its role in political surveillance. The Church Committee hearings of the mid-1970s investigated the FBI's abuse of power and illegal surveillance, which led to reforms aimed at increasing oversight and protecting citizens' rights. In the years following Hoover's death, the FBI began focusing more on counterterrorism and cybercrime as new threats emerged. The FBI's role in counterterrorism became especially critical after the September 11, 2001 attacks. The agency played a central role in investigating and preventing future terrorist attacks on U.S. soil, expanding its operations into global intelligence and working closely with other national security agencies. The war on terrorism after the 9th of November changed the FBI's priorities, with the agency working to track terrorist organizations like Al-Qaeda and ISIS. The Bureau also expanded its role in cybersecurity, combating the growing threat of cybercrime, hacking, and identity theft. In recent decades, the FBI's work has continued to evolve with the digital age. It now investigates a wide range of crimes, from drug trafficking and organized crime to human trafficking and internet fraud. The FBI is also deeply involved in national security efforts, counterintelligence, and the protection of critical infrastructure from cyber attacks. The FBI today, challenges and controversies. Today, the FBI is one of the most well-known and powerful law enforcement agencies in the world, with more than 35,000 employees working across 56 field offices throughout the United States and international branches in 70 countries. Its responsibilities continue to grow as it faces new and emerging threats like terrorism, cybercrime, and foreign espionage. Despite its success and importance, the FBI has faced criticism and challenges over the years, especially regarding issues of civil liberties and the balance between security and privacy. Its surveillance programs, especially following the 9/11 attacks, have sparked ongoing debates about government overreach and the protection of individual rights.